And go.
What's up, fight fans? Welcome to another edition of Split Decision MMA, your weekly, semi-weekly, during quarantine podcast covering all things mixed martial arts.
When there's nothing but what happened and what's happening next. What are we gonna do?
You had things happening. That's it. You know, our lives come before MMA.
Right.
But we do try to cover everything that is in the wide world of mixed martial arts once a week, giving you the breakdown of fights, upcoming fights, what's going on the rumor mills, what's going on online. We are brought to you by My MMA News. They do this every single day, 24 hours a day. They are still doing this, knocking everything out of the park. They just brought on 30 new journalists the last time I heard. They are still cranking these out. And as always, healthlabs.com allows you to get blood work if you're an MMA fighter. And so if you're heading out to Vegas, I believe you can still get these fights in the UFC. You can go to healthlabs.com, code word MyMMANews, get yourself a 10% discount. They are also doing COVID antibody testing to find out if you have been exposed to COVID-19. Make sure you check those out. It's simple. It's 24 hours a day. You can go on there, fill out the form. They hook you up with 2,500 accredited labs across the United States. You go in, get your blood work. There's no insurance. There's no big paperwork. It's really simple, one flat rate. Make sure you check out healthlabs.com. Let's jump into some stories for the week. We have USADA has announced that an independent arbitrator has rendered a decision in the case of UFC flyweight Bruno Aronda da Silva in Brazil. He has got a 2-year suspension of 2 years due to a violation of the anti-doping policy. It says that he tested positive for boldenone, and it's metabolite, which has a bunch of numbers and letters that I'm not even going to try to put together as a sentence. But they said it has been it's at a level that's inconsistent with meat contamination. So they're definitely putting this on him. He has a 2-year suspension. I guess he tried to say, well, I had tainted meat. And they were like, nope, you have more than the amount that should be found for tainted meat. Good try.
No, that's a good one. But
that was good. You should have used the John Jones tape pills. You might have been able to get off a little bit better.
What had happened was I had stopped at a liquor store.
Also, Rachel Ostovich Berdon also has been suspended, this time for 1 year. However, she has received 4 months credit of sanction due to her time served. This was due to a tested positive of ostarine. We've talked about that before as an anabolic agent and a hormone modulator. They said she identified
no chance it was sexually transmitted.
Not a sexually transmitted PED. Not a sexually transmitted PED. This though was positive for a supplement that she had, and it was not listed on the supplement. So that's why she is given a 1-year suspension. Actually, and she's already spent 4 of those months on suspension. So we won't see Rachel Ostovich for a little while.
Yeah, it's in a lot of aftermarket.
Rich Trias might be sad. I mean, I know he's got a beautiful lady that he's with right now, but still, I know it's one of his fighters that he likes to watch.
He's probably grooming her to look like Ostovich.
I could see it a little bit. Only time will tell.
Yep, it will develop.
It will. Some things take time, just like this next story. Some things take time. Chaz Skelly fought Bobby Moffitt at UFC Fight Night 139, November 10th, 2018, 2 years ago in Denver, Colorado. Okay, at the time, referee Tim Mills called a stop to the contest at 2:43 of round 2 because he had thought that Moffitt had Chaz Skelly in a Darce choke and was unconscious. So it was ruled a technical submission. Bobby Moffitt got a win in round 2. However, by watching the video, they did appeal this. They went further through. 2 years later, the Colorado State Athletic Commission has decided that it will be changed to a no contest because you can decide. They found that he was not unconscious, that the fight should have been able to go on, that the referee unfortunately made a mistake. So doesn't get the win, but he doesn't get the loss. No contest. Chaz Skelly getting redemption 2 years later. That's a crazy story.
It is. I mean, so what does that do for somebody who, I mean, he's had a couple more fights since then, right?
Chaz Skelly, I got to believe he has. Yeah, let's see if we can look up his record here.
All right.
While we have the interwebs here in front of me. Chaz Skelly, after coming off of that loss He's had one more fight. He fought again in
Okay.
2019. He fought Jordan Griffin with a win. Bobby Moffitt, however, after his win over Chad Skelly, goes on to fight Bryce Mitchell and Enrique Barzola and loses both of those fights last year, March and August for both of those. So he is now technically riding a 2-fight skid and a no contest. But yeah, take your time. maybe things can turn around for you. I don't know. I don't know how many other appeals are out there that are just sitting where they say they still haven't made a decision. Most of these, I feel like we hear about pretty quickly, where they turn around and tell you either no, it's not going to happen, we're not going to go with the appeals, or there's nothing to even look at here. I've never heard of one taking this long, but that's pretty good. Good for Chad Skelly. I mean, hopefully this will start him up again.
Right.
What do we got? We got Lil Nog is set to fight Shogun Hua. He's already fought him twice before, once at Pride Critical Countdown back in 2005 and once at UFC 190 in 2015. He's lost both of those fights. Unanimous decision, even though one of them was probably fight of the night. I believe it actually won fight of the night. However, he is going to fight a third trilogy fight with Shogun at UFC on ESPN Plus 32, which is coming out of Fight Island July 25th. And he says, win or lose, this will be his last fight. So Lil Nog, now his big brother, has already retired, so now he is going to retire after this trilogy fight with Shogun.
Well, you think he'll stay? You think he'll stay? Well, I mean,
I think it's time. I think it's time.
It's a little late. It's a little late, actually.
Yeah, a lot of these Pride guys, they were in some brutal fights, and they were fighting quite a few times a year over in Pride with soccer kicks and knees to the head and these other rules that I actually enjoy. That we had over in the MMA scene that was in Japan at the time, back in the 2001-ish to 2006-ish time frame. But yeah, a lot of these guys were in some wars, and I think it's time is telling on their body. I think Shogun needs to retire, win or lose, on this fight as well. He's been around the sport. I understand he is still somewhat of a young guy, but man, he's been in some wars as well. He's had constant knee surgeries, so we'll see what comes out of that for Shogun and Lil Nog. And then we had the UFC 251 poster was dropped. It's very bright neon green and purple. It reminds me of the 90s with the color schemes that they got going on. I don't know if you looked at it there.
Going back to the olden days.
It reminds me of some 90s color schemes here. They're also saying that they were going to indicate that UFC 4, EA UFC 4 will be revealed during the pay-per-view at some point. I saw 4 covers. One with Adesanya on it, one with Amanda Nunes, one with Jorge Masvidal, and one with Khabib Nurmagomedov as the cover. And they're saying that this is causing some controversy about who should be on the cover. Immediately, of course, the interwebs went into overdrive, and we had all kinds of fake covers about UFC 4 floating out there, which I thought was pretty funny. One with you got a Khabib in the bathtub, that picture that everyone puts around. I saw one with Miesha Tate in a little upskirt from when her nudes got leaked. I saw one with just Khabib on the front. I've seen one with Connor still on the front of it. I mean, it's people going crazy with the photoshops that are out there. But I guess we'll get to see who gets the official cover. Who do you think should be on the cover of UFC 4? In my opinion, out of everybody that's been listed that's out there, Amanda Nunes. The GOAT. Yeah. I mean, right?
She's the one
that, Nunes has a belt and has had it for a while. Not saying Gaethje doesn't have a belt. I just
don't want to gooch her, you know? You don't want to be on the cover.
Yeah, I feel like you get on the cover, you lose, or something happens to you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that the cover curse? Like, they did this in Madden. I'm pretty sure they did it in the UFC.
Right? It was Jones, right? Jones? No.
I think at one point it was Jones, and then he got busted, right, for steroids.
Yeah.
We had Ronda. She ended up losing.
Yeah, you don't want to be on the cover.
You don't want to be on the cover. It's not a thing. And then the last little bit of news before we get into a recap, and the story that's attached to the recap is that something that we've covered on this show extensively before. I know we've talked about this because we are sticklers for this kind of thing, and we just love to beat a dead horse. UFC rankings. The bullshit rankings that go out there for these fighters that are put together by members of the media. At the beginning of the year, we've talked over the years about how the rankings panel didn't make sense, that half the guys don't even work for the publications that they say they work for. Half of them don't cover MMA anymore, and that they didn't seem very accredited when it comes to who was making the rankings. Well, at the beginning of the year, we got some good news. Our friend Eric Kowal out there at My MMA News and a few others got to be added to the rankings panel, and they said that they were going to basically try to revitalize it. They were going to try to have legit rankings.
Breathe some new life into it.
Breathe some new life and correct the ship, right? Correct the course. And they still didn't get rid of any of the idiots that were on it before, so it's not a complete clean slate, but you were hoping that the new guys would outweigh the bad guys and you'd be able to, like, again, steer the course the right way.
Right.
And then shortly after, I am pretty sure we've talked about this, they said that it was very strange that they were getting basically cliff notes on how to vote. That if this guy wins because of this, they should do this. And some of the voters took that verbatim and go, okay. And they just waited and they said, well, he won, so it says I should do this, and that's what they did.
If then this.
Yeah,
then
other
that.
voters, such as Eric, he would actually watch the fights and pay attention and have a mind of his own and actually make votes that make sense. I don't know who did the other. I'm not calling anybody out, although I just know that those notes are out there. In the beginning, when we talked about this, I think we were under the impression that maybe this was just temporary to kind of get people to understand how the rankings work for all these new ranking guys.
What they would like to see if
they would like to see.
Yeah.
But apparently this happens every week and has continued to happen. They're still getting cliff notes. Now, at first, we were under the impression that these were coming from the UFC directly, which seemed very conflict of interest. Seemed very much that they were pushing what the UFC wanted. After reaching out to Eric and talking with some of the people there on the rankings, it actually is provided by Adept Mobile LLC. They are the company that run the ranking system for the UFC. So it's supposed to be a third-party system, a third-party company that the UFC has hired to reach out to the media, to reach out to the panelists, and connect them to. So I don't know if you can necessarily blame the UFC. I don't know if it's Adapt Media that is sending the letters, like somebody at Adapt Media writes it up and sends it, or if the UFC sends it to Adapt and then Adapt sends it out so that they can use that curtain of we're not actually involved. I mean,
right. We're not the ones. It's not us.
Yeah, don't look at the guy behind the curtain over there. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not 100% sure where it happens, but it does happen. They do get cliff notes on how to vote. 100% get cliff notes on how to vote. So this happened, and then it blew up on Twitter this past week because there was a very strange comment that got sent to the panelists, and it said something along the lines, let's see if I can find the verbatim. Please note, we had a panelist retire from the program this week, which will account for some of the movement unrelated to fights. So they're saying that movement unrelated to fights. Why is anybody in the rankings moving if no one's voting? Even if a guy retires, so he gets less votes now, so you can shift the rankings at any time? What's the point? If you can move the rankings at any time that has nothing to do with fights,
it changes the average.
It completely changes the average, but this goes back to a lot of things that people were saying early on before the new rankings panel that the old rankings panel had a problem with, where the UFC was using tactics to remove or lower guys in rankings when it came down to contract negotiations. Right. I mean, we know this happened before. We know that this happened to Nate Diaz. We know that this happened to
they've completely removed people while going into negotiation.
When they go into negotiation, they remove them from the rankings just so they can say, well, you're not worth the money you think you're worth because you're not even ranked. Right. And it's not us that does the rankings. It's this other panel, so they see that you're not ranked.
You're not even a needle mover.
You're not even a needle mover. And if that was the case, and this was put out there by a couple fighters, and we've obviously talked about this before, Gilbert Burns put out there, look, Cejudo retired, and they immediately take him off the rankings, right? I don't remember that. If you saw the minute Cejudo retired, the next day he got taken off the rankings, and that's immediately why they booked Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo for that title is because he was no longer at the top. But yet we still have Conor McGregor is still in the rankings in a division he no longer fights in.
Right.
So obviously the UFC has something to do with who goes and who doesn't on the rankings there. So it's just very strange that message came out and says, "Hey, don't worry that there was movement. Don't be concerned about the movement because it was having to do with the guy retiring.
We're okay. We know
by
what's
retiring,
going on.
We're talking about a panelist, not a
Right.
fighter." So very strange kind of situation that happened. Again, this isn't anything new. We talked about those notes, and then someone said, I guess again, it got on Twitter that, what do you mean the UFC sends cliff notes to the panelists, to the voters on how they should vote? And this caused a little bit of an issue with the fights that happened over the weekend, where basically they were saying that should Josh Emmett win, he will not move in the rankings. But if Shane Burgos does, he will move, exponentially, which a lot of people had issue with because it's basically showing Josh Emmett had a little bias against him. And it's something that he's talked about on Twitter and online, that he feels the UFC is pushing him down and that they wanted Burgos to be the top guy and he was going to prove that he could win.
Right.
So
and if the rankings are truly independent, then why is it that it's the UFC that he feels is pushing on him?
Exactly. Right. A lot of these fears that these fighters are talking about are seeming to come to fruition, and there's now proof. As far as I know, Mr. Kowal there did release a picture of the suggestions that he was getting from Adapt Media, and was told, "Hey, please don't do that. Don't release them." Now, he's not been removed from the ranking panel. He still is going to be voting.
Yes.
He was interviewed by a bunch of MMA websites. I'm sure you can find some stories about this sort of situation out there. I know Middle Easy picked it up real quick. Bloody Elbow picked it up real quick. MMA Fighting picked it up real quick. A lot of guys are wondering, well, what's going on here? What's going on with the rankings? Even though this is something that we've been talking about for a couple of years. In fact, I even made it something written up about this, I believe, last year. And then it got put on Reddit at the beginning of the year, and it took off. I mean, people are finally figuring it out, I think, and starting to ask questions. But I'm wondering at what point does the UFC step in again? I don't know.
They don't. It's working for them. So until there's a true uproar, I mean, what happened what happened with Eric and everything is good, because then maybe more questions will start to be asked by more people.
I was told that they did kind of the company Adapt Media did inquire with him on what they inquired with him and other media members on what could be implemented or changed to make the rankings better, to make them more legit, to make them what would make these guys a little happier and along those lines. Right. So hopefully they are going to make some changes here. We did have UFC on ESPN 11, which is UFC on ESPN Blades versus Volkov, UFC Las Vegas, UFC the Apex Center. I don't even know what we're calling all these now. Happened over last week on the show we did not have, and you had a little bit of controversy on the very first fight on the card. Austin Hubbard went up against Max Roshkop, and in between rounds, you can hear Roshkop Max talking with his trainer Robert Drysdale, and telling him, call the fight. He felt tired. He felt he was being outworked. He was getting dominated. He knew he was done. He said he had an issue coming. He had a foot injury coming into the fight, and there was no way. After 2 rounds in between, he finally told his corner, just call the fight, call the fight, call the fight, call the fight. I'm not going to do it. Call the fight. Robert Drysdale, his coach, instead kept telling him, no, I'm not going to call the fight. You're doing fine. I need you to do this. No, I'm not calling the fight. You're fine. You're a champion. We got this. Basically ignoring his fighters' pleas to call the fight.
And everybody's hearing it.
Everybody's hearing it. And a lot of people put Robert Drysdale down and said that he was not thinking about the safety of his fighter. And there's other guys where he's saying, look, I just was trying to give him a mental push. I knew where he was at. I know it's tough. I know he may have been injured, but I know he could pull through and still win this fight. I know my fighter. I was not trying to get him injured. And then at the last second, Max Roshkov did not get off the stool for the next round. He stayed on the stool, and at that point, the ref turned around and asked, "Do you want to continue?" And Robert Drysdale, the coach, did say he does not want to continue. And then, of course, Max said, "I am not going to continue," and they called the fight at that time. A lot of people are putting the blame on Robert Drysdale for not ever calling the fight. He did point out, if you do watch the entire clip, the last thing said in the clip is him saying he does not want to fight.
Right. So, I mean, he didn't let him get off the stool, but he was coaxing him to go into the next round.
Yeah, I feel like if Max would have stood up, Robert would have never said anything. He would have walked away. But the fact that the ref had to walk over and go, "Your guy's still sitting down," that's when he's like, well, shit, he's not getting up. I might as well say what he wants.
The gig is up. The gig is up.
The gig is up, yeah. So that was the first fight on the card. Austin Hubbard getting the win with technical TKO retirement of the second round. Then you had Lauren Murphy gets the win over Roxanne Modafferi. Justin James over Frank Camacho, Gillian Robertson over Courtney Casey, Mark Andrade Baralt over Oscar Pinchota, Tisha Torres gets the win over Brianna Van Buren, and Bobby Green over Clay Guida. Anything in those prelims that struck your fancy?
Lauren Murphy just ragdolled Modafferi.
Yeah,
Modafferi, or however you pronounce her name now. And then Bobby Green. I was surprised that Bobby Green bested Guida, but because early on it looked like Guida was going to get him, but
yeah, Guida always looking like he is just 2 rounds ahead of everybody.
Right.
Jim Miller gets the win over Roosevelt Roberts. Lots of talk about him getting into the UFC Hall of Fame at some point. Belahel Muhammad getting the win over Lyman Good. Raquel Pennington gets the win over Marion Renew. Josh Emmett does get his win over Shane Burgos. And Curtis Blades over Alexander Volkov. UFC President Dana White not impressed with Curtis Blades. Just saying that he doesn't seem like he's the next guy. He's not the next top heavyweight. So we'll see.
People can have an off day, especially in the situation that we're in. I mean, some people need a crowd. Some people need a drive.
Very true. Very true. And then we have a hell of a card coming up tomorrow. This is on ESPN, UFC on ESPN 12, UFC on ESPN, Poirier versus Hooker, UFC on ESPN Vegas / Apex Center. I don't know what we're calling these again.
UFC Las Vegas 4.
Is that what it is?
Yep. Or UFC Vegas 4.
We did have a fight fallout today. Rahiminez Brahamaj was scheduled to face Takashi Sato at this event. However, he had to pull out of the fight leading up to the event due to his cornerman tested positive for COVID-19. Jason Witt will be tabbed as a replacement to face Sato. So
if your cornerman tests positive, you're out too, huh?
Yeah, because they have to train together, sleep together, that whole thing. You got to stay quarantined. You could have it. Because what's supposed to happen, and the whole thing what they're doing with the Fight Island thing, which is it's pretty smart, is that they bring you in, your team. You have to stay in your pod, basically. You only train with your cornerman. You only talk to your cornerman. You guys have the same room, all this kind of stuff. You don't get any other action with fighters until after your test results come back and it shows that you're negative.
Well, you got to have 2 negatives, right?
Right, 2 negatives. So they're not going to show up to the weigh-ins with, we don't know yet. Instead, they show up that they are definitely negative. However, the cornerman tested positive, so now you got to quarantine the other guy and anybody else that was in that pod basically with them. So in Fight Island, that's kind of what they're doing. That's why they're saying they've set up an entire perimeter. You can't even get into the area that these guys are at. So that way that these guys can get out and about and kind of move around and not be interrupted by other people walking around. So anyway, on your prelims, you got Jordan Griffin going against Youssef Zalal, Kay Hansen against J.U. Frey, and Takashi Soto getting his new opponent with Jason Witt, Luis Pena against Kama Worthy. Anything there that seems to stand out to you and which you want to take?
I like to watch J.U. Frey fight.
She's a good fighter. I do enjoy watching her. Let's see what's got here. And then we got on your main card at a catchweight, Sean Woodson against Julian Anarosa. I'm trying to think why. Due to a short notice. That's what we got. I was trying to figure out why it was going to be here. Also, we didn't talk about this, but Sarah McMahon was supposed to be fighting Aspen Ladd on this card. Aspen Ladd has pulled out of her fight. She has a torn ACL and MCL. I know
she's plagued. She's plagued. go and I mean she's fallen out of. And again, I guess this is the first fight due to injury that she's missed. But
Right.
I
know
mean,
we first got the
she
notification.
fell out of a lot of fights.
We first got the notification and it said injury. Both you and me were like, injury, right?
Injury, but
right.
yeah, ACL, MCL, they go hand in hand.
Was she coming up in weight? Like, were we worried?
Yeah.
And then we found out, okay, it's an actual injury. All right. All right. Well, all right. I'll give it to you. And they are real. I'm not trying to be a dick, but
right.
Your record doesn't look good. Philip Linz. Oh, anyway, Sean Woodson against Juliana Rosa. Philip Linz going up against Tanner Boser. Guillen Vellante against Maurice Mo Green. Brendan Allen against Kyle Dukas. Mike Perry against Mickey Gall. I'm excited for this fight. And Dustin Poirier against Dan Hooker in what could easily be fight of the night. I mean, this could be fight of the year. Dan Hooker, Dustin Poirier is an amazing fight that I'm super excited for. Anybody jump off the page besides that fight in which you are looking for?
Not really jump off the page, but Mo Green. If Mo Green can pull off a substantial quick win, I think this would help jettison him up.
From what I've seen in the odds makers, he is a 2-1 favorite, but he's only a slight lead in picks around the web that I've been able to find.
And that's what I mean. I mean, it's got to be decisive. It's got to be like in the first round. It's got to be a submission or a knockout.
Guillen Vellante was one of these guys that had a high stake in the UFC, but now he's 17-11 overall, 7-8. He has not had a winning record in the UFC. But Mo Green, 8-4 overall, 3-2 in the UFC. Again, I see a slight pick for him. He's a 2-1 favorite. There are some picks with Vellante for the upset. That's a tough one for sure. Yeah. Also, we have on this one, Brendan Allen is a huge favorite over Kyle Dukas. He is looking at like 12-2 as far as picks that I've been able to see. And then you got Mickey Gall is a 3-1 favorite over Mike Perry. Can you believe that?
Well, I don't know.
Other way around. Sorry. 3-1 favorite Mike Perry. Mike Perry is a 3-1 favorite over Mickey Gall. I mean,
really?
Yeah, he is a 3-1 favorite. That's why it was a little shocking to me. Is I read it backwards to you, but when I saw it, I was like, wait, y'all are going to pick Mike? I'm not saying Mike Perry can't get it done. Mike Perry is a tough guy. He's got a solid.
Yeah, but Mickey Gall could come in there like a monster. He has the ability.
I think what people are remembering is Mickey Gall's bad fights, the couple fights that he had that just didn't look right, especially that one against Diego.
But he was partying.
It was clear that he was partying and not taking it seriously. Yeah. And then, of course, your main event, Poirier right now is a 2-1 favorite after losing his title bout to Khabib Nurmagomedov. Big lead. Are you taking Dan Hooker in this one, or are you taking Dustin Poirier?
I'm taking Hooker.
Hooker?
Yeah.
That's a good, solid upset pick. I think betting-wise, if you're wanting to bet an underdog with a more of a chance of winning, I would definitely take Hooker. Right. There was a couple fights over the last couple that I had talked to some guys. A couple friends of ours went to Reno, and they were down and they went and placed a couple bets. And they were like, what are some solid ones? Who's going to win? And I picked out a couple fights for them. And they were like, yeah, we won. I'm like, well, they were also the betting favorites. Like, if you want, you're going to win those fights. You're not going to win a lot, but you're going to win some money. But if you're looking for an underdog to make a big payday, I think Dan Hooker has the best chance out of everybody that's listed as an underdog in this card. I still think
There's nothing out there. There's nothing out there like Tate versus Holmes where.
Right.
Yeah.
I still think I'm going to be taking Dustin Poirier, the favorite on this one, just because he has looked phenomenal since his comeback.
He needs the win.
His one stumble there against Khabib to me is not anything that he should be knocked down about.
We'll see though, because Hooker to me seems really hungry.
You don't think Poirier is? You think he's lost?
No. I can't deny that Poirier's, but I mean, I don't know. I think Hooker has more. I don't know. How would you say he's like there's less expected of him, so it's more drive, you know?
Let's see what he's got here. Let's look at records. He is riding a 3-fight win streak, knockout over James Vick, Alaquenta, and Paul Felder. Knockout over Vick, and then the decision wins over Felder and Quincy. He was on quite a rise. Sole loss since 2017 against Edson Barbosa. However, you got Dustin Poirier coming off of his single loss against Khabib Nurmagomedov. Still huge wins over Max Holloway, Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, Anthony Pettis, Jim Miller.
You can't deny where Poirier's coming from, but
that's why I think he is
trying to justify my upset pick. That's what I'm trying to justify.
I think he is definitely on a tear of the who's who of the division, and that's why I'm picking him. However, Dan Hooker, he's got very good wins over Ross Pearson, Jim Miller, Gilbert Burns, Paul Felder that last fight. I think he's definitely an underdog pick that is worth the money to throw down. Right. And when I say underdog picks, anytime you go to bet and you throw money in on underdog, expect to lose, but your payout will be good if they win.
Exactly.
And that's about it. That's this week. We will cover everything that comes to you next week. We'll do some recaps, and then I think we got Fight Island coming up after that. Although we'll see what's going on because I think the day our show is the day before 4th of July. I don't know what you're doing, but I'll try to get down here.
Yeah, or maybe we could do it the 2nd. It'd be the Thursday.
I might be able to do that.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. We'll
see how it goes.
Maybe we'll record it the 2nd. And we'll put it out the 3rd.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
There we go.
As always, we are brought to you by My MMA News. Remember, we do this once a week when we can. They do this 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, covering everything mixed martial arts. That's mymmanews.com. And also brought to you by healthlabs.com. Healthlabs.com, bringing you fast and affordable blood work tests for MMA fighters, COVID-19 testing for yourself. Make sure you check them out at healthlabs.com. Keyword My MMA News, I believe, still gets you that discount. And then, as always, I am here at SynCal Studios in SynCal Industries here in Modesto, California, for all your tattoo, piercing, incense, smokable needs. I don't think they're doing tattoos and piercings right now because I don't think they're open, but I do know they're doing all their vinyl stickers. I know they're still doing body jewelry. I know they're still doing a lot of cool stuff here. Yeah, that is it.
Check them out.
That is your week of MMA. You guys have a good night, and we'll see you at the fights.
No, we're not seeing anybody at the fights.
Virtually.
Later.